your bio,
Sure.
what did you do before you ran for office, and some of your vision and your policy position, and then why do you think that you as a, let's say, a qualified candidate for this position, right?
Yeah.
And then starting by that, and then definitely they have some questions for you after you.
Absolutely. Well, Christopher Bae, as you know, running for City Council, District 19. Andy, thanks for just putting this together. I appreciate everyone's time. I'll be brief. But, even just a few years ago, when we've had elected officials kind of call out our Asian American community with very subtle but racist comments, like, calling it the Kung flu, or, people on the bus have told me to go back to China. We've all faced discrimination as Asian Americans, but when elected officials do it on a national level or even at a local level, but just from a governmental standpoint, that's just unacceptable. And we have very divisive leaders in our community right now, and I find that they don't represent the best of our communities. CD19, which covers Little Neck, Douglaston, Bayside, parts of Flushing, College Point, and Whitestone, we're such a diverse community. And we have nearly 40% of Asians in this district, and yet we have such blatant racist and just very bigoted comments and attacks on our community. And that's just unacceptable, and that's one big reason why I'm running. As a Korean American born and raised here in Bayside, as someone who came out of all public schools from New York, I went to Bronx Science, SUNY Binghamton, CUNY Law School. I want to make sure that our public education is stronger for our children. Shout out to our leaders such as John Liu, who says, hey, look, Asian American history should be taught and studied in our public schools. We need strong leadership like that to really help push our communities forward. I'm really grateful that the teachers union, the UFT, came out in support of me and my vision for a stronger Queens. And at the end of the day, I do acknowledge that there are inequities within our different communities, but we need to make sure we're fighting for our own communities. And if that means making sure that we continue to fight for standardized testing, the Shazat, making sure that we all have an equal opportunity for a better life, more opportunities than our parents had, that's what I'm going to continue to fight for. And that's why I'm running for CD19.
In your background as former ADA, during that time, what do you see the gap between Asian American community, and what kind of issue that we're facing that going to help you running for public office?
Yeah, so I was a prosecutor for over 7 years, and during that time I certainly advocated on behalf of crime victims, a lot of serious felony offenses. But I did notice amongst Asian American communities that there is a certain level of distrust with government, with law enforcement. They just feel like there's a disconnect, whether it's because of language barriers, cultural differences, or anything else. They're hesitant to move forward on a case or come forward on a case. And I think that's where representation really matters, right? To have people that look like you and have had similar experiences advocating for you and for your interests, it goes a long way of building community trust between folks in community with elected officials. And I definitely want to help bridge that gap as well with our Asian American communities and local government.
Especially during pandemic, right? A lot of hate crime towards the Asian American community and for their bigotry, hatreds. As former ADA, especially for the Asian community, what we care about these recent years are really the hate crime and the public safety. And your former position as ADA, kind of what's the message? Of course, a lot of Asian Americans care about the safety issue, right? What's your message?
Well, safety is huge. Public safety is huge. And just know that, I know that the DA, District Attorney Melinda Katz, when I worked for her, she knows that hate crimes are really important and she's doing everything she can to fight against it. But I'm really proud that I continue to serve on the board of the Asian American Bar Association. We have been at the forefront when it comes to anti-Asian hate initiatives, fighting for more resources, fighting for policy and legislative changes, we need organizations like that and others to continue fighting for the Asian American community, and I will continue to do that with my experience in prosecution, with my leadership in other organizations.
Yeah, and you do aware that you are the youngest candidate in this race. So, what's your strengths and your message kind of like to the younger generation out there, and also to kind of like older generation? Be like, hey, you can be the one that really can fighting for them, right? Including understand their message, understand their language, and your bold vision. Found the future for them.
Yeah, so I was born here, my parents immigrated here, I'm 35 years old, so I'm kind of right in that sweet spot where I'm not necessarily young, but I'm not necessarily old, and I have, my feet on both sides of the line. And, to the folks out in the community, I will continue to fight for the Asian American community. To the younger folks in the community, we really need to be civically engaged, because at the end of the day, if we don't vote, we don't have a say as to how our resources are being spent, how much and what we're getting from city government, from city hall, and anything like that. So we have to let our elected officials know that we as a community truly care about our community and that we are civically engaged so that we get what we deserve.
And also, besides you as a candidate right now and your former position as Queens ADA, any other organization or community group that you involved with and you carry that title from that organizations?
Well, I mentioned Albany. I also serve on the board of the Korean American Lawyers, but I do have deep community ties. Recently, I was at an event where I saw my Troop 142 Boy Scouts. I was really happy to see them. The Little Leagues, I grew up playing Little Neck Douglaston Baseball League. So these kind of like community organizations, when I become city council member, I'm gonna make sure to continue to fund these organizations and support them, because I know for a fact that these are the things that kept me out of trouble growing up. And so we're gonna make sure to continue to invest in our children.
Okay.
Yeah.
大家有没有什么问题？
So talking about children, what's your opinion about the Jack Story Hour?
Yeah, well, my opinion is we have to be talking about this conversation from a position of compassion, letting children know that there is a safe space, even within our schools, to talk about any identity issues that they may have. Because at the end of the day, national studies have shown that children who are exploring these types of questions go through a higher level of suicide rates and suicide attempts, and that's just unacceptable. We have to support them as they continue to talk about these or want to talk about these. But with that being said, I think parents should also have a very loud voice and a say in how they want their children's education to be developed. And so I think at the end of the day, the parent teachers should come together, all the stakeholders should come together, and they should decide for themselves, school by school, what they think is the best course of action.
大家还有其他问题吗？
What kind of needs for Asian American communities in District 19 do you think still unmet that you are pushing?
Yeah, well, I think mental health is a big one that's not being talked about amongst Asian American communities. So to the extent that there are, on the ground organizations like the KCSs of the world who are doing a lot of good work, making sure that we're talking about it, that we're having healthy conversations about it, and then providing them with resources to get the help that they need, I think that's one big factor in the Asian American community.
So I want to know what's the difference you think you are Latin and the councilwoman.
What's the difference between me and the councilwoman? Hopefully everything.
I mean, what you can do better than her.
Right. So one thing that I believe she cannot do is build bridges. And it's not because she's a Republican, I respect a lot of the views that she has, but the way that she does it, where she's fighting with everyone, she's talking past people instead of building relationships. She doesn't have the ability to work with other council members to push forward legislation, push through legislation. Local Law 97 is one that affects a lot of our co-op and condo owners. And she put in legislation to push back the implementation of Local Law 97, which is great. You know, I commend her for that. But is she going to get the support necessary from her council colleagues? I don't think so. I know I have a better chance than she does, and because I can build those relationships.
And what is your take on Local 97?
Yeah, like Councilmember Vicky Palladino, I think at the very least it should be pushed back, the implementation. If we can do a carve out for our working class, middle class families here, that should also be a possibility, just because a one size fits all policy does not benefit everyone in New York City. You know, the people in high rise buildings in Manhattan who are the causes of a lot of these greenhouse emissions, how can our working class families in Queens be held to the same standards as, you know, the more affluent in Manhattan? So I don't think the implementation of this law is fair, and I will continue to fight to make sure that we can fix it and make some sensible solutions to it.
And housing issues are kind of like hot button issues in District 19. I just wonder, what is your take on some, you know?
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, Andy asked about just kind of my age and being a little bit younger. I think there has to be a shift from the change of the old ways, in that we have to be willing to adapt and to change. And I'm not saying that we ruin the integrity of our neighborhoods by changing everything, but to the extent that we can sit down with developers and talk about some sensible locations within the district to really help with the supply and demand issue of housing, because right now there's clearly a shortage of housing, not enough housing to go around, and that's why we have a homelessness issue, that's why we have a housing affordability issue. And so to the extent that the old ways of not in my backyard, not in my backyard used to be the case, that just can't be the case moving forward.
So what's your opinion about the legal basement?
Illegal basements?
Yeah.
Legalizing the basement.
Yeah,
Legalization.
Yeah.
Right, so it can't just be legalize them just to make them legal, right? They have to be up to code. But also, I do think, let's take a step back here. There is a clear difference between illegal basements and just folks who rent out a basement that's otherwise legal, right? I think the first concern should always be safety, that there aren't families in dwellings that are just unsafe when it comes to hard rains. They don't have the safety standards or come up to code. But I do not believe in widespread blanket legalization of all basements.
And also continue with just additional the question she asked, that recently then you do aware that on Northern Boulevard side, right? On the west side, there's going to be they're converting a Curvena hotel into a homeless shelter. What are your opinion on that? Would you support, like, you know, single male homeless shelter, or
Not for homeless,
Migrant.
for migrant.
for migrant?
Yeah, migrant.
No, yeah.
I'm sorry, where exactly is that coming into?
I think Anchor Inn is the name.
Northern
Yeah.
and 214, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it already came in for Anchor Inn, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's just single family. It's not just single males. It's for just families in general, I believe, because I've seen all sorts of types of migrants over there. But I do think it's hard because, you know, the resources that they need aren't accessible from somewhere that far out in Northeast Queens. You know, migrants should have access to resources, and the best place is at transit hubs. We're near train stations or in the city, and Northeast Queens is a transit desert, so we just don't have the infrastructure available to really help them out.
What if there's going to be another hotel converting into a homeless shelter strictly for single male, or even some of the I would say prior criminal record?
Yeah, we
It
have
could
to be
happen.
careful. No, it could happen. It could happen. But luckily, I mean, the mayor has been engaging with a lot of our faith leaders, right? There's
Yeah.
been a last round of over 50 faith leaders who are opening up their doors and talk about, you know, treating people with compassion. You know, it is our churches and synagogues who are helping with this, but that's not going to be enough.
Mm.
It's really going to be the federal government coming in with some real resources to help out Mayor Adams and the rest of his administration, because we, as New Yorkers, are just bursting at the seams.
Mm.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I get the right answer for local law 97. So
Sure.
you said Vicky Palladino, at least we should at least push back the legislation as Vicky Palladino proposed, but she cannot get it done in the city council. And
Because she doesn't have the relationships to get enough
Exactly.
votes. Yeah.
but you hold the similar opinion, but as a leader you can have it
To
done.
work with others. Exactly. Yeah.
还有其他问题吗？
解决，但是他捅出来了。
不是，它是一个我现在那个地方不能被通过，但是因为市议会里面没有人会通过。
没有，就是公民无数嘛，包括他们。
是，所以我就想确认一下他是不是这样回答我。
对，他可能就是这个意思。
还有其他问题吗？还有其他问题吗
Yeah, I think we run out of questions.
Great.
Yeah.
Any additional message? Awards? Early voting is coming out.
June 17th, early voting. Please get out and vote, because at the end of the day, for each of our communities, we only have a voice if we vote.
Mhm.
And so make plans. Grab your mom, grab your friends and cousins and family, and say, we're going to vote. Make sure you bring a little sticker and you post it on social media, and just make plans, because you have to vote.
Is there any your campaign address or phone number or contact info they can reach out if they have any questions finding out the poll sites?
Yeah, if you go to bae2023.com, BAE2023.com, shoot me a message. I promise to get back to you with any answers to questions.
还有其他问题吗？
好了。
Guys, I truly appreciate. Oh no, go ahead.
Let's take a picture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.